Where does the business logic go? In a lot of services, it's smeared across the controllers, HTTP, validation, database calls, and business rules, all tangled in one method. Clean architecture says, put your business model in the center and don't let it know anything about HTTP or databases. A Trellis service ships exactly that. As for projects, let me show you the layout, the one rule that holds it together, and the part where the compiler keeps you honest. For projects, the domain is the heart, your aggregates, value objects, and domain events, the rules that are true no matter how the app is called. Application orchestrates, one command or query per use case, plus the repository interfaces it needs. The anti-corruption layer, the ACL, is where the database lives, the DbContext, the entity framework mappings, the repository implementations. And the API project is the thin edge, controllers, DTOs, and the startup that wires it all together. Business rules in the middle, the messy outside world at the edges. Here's the rule that makes this clean architecture and not just for folders. Every dependency points inward toward the domain. At the top, the API project depends on the two layers below it. The ACL, the persistence adapter, depends on application. Application depends on the domain to run its use cases. And the domain depends on nothing but Trellis itself. No ASP.NET, no entity framework. The model at the center can't call the database, because the database isn't on its reference list. The one Trellis twist, the domain does pull an entity framework core, but as an analyzer only, never a runtime dependency. You get compile time mapping checks, with zero infrastructure in your domain. This is the piece that makes it work, dependency inversion. The application layer owns the contract, the repository interface. It says, find a project by ID, add a new one, and it returns a maybe, because absence is data, not a failure. Notice it never mentions a database. Down in the ACL, the implementation uses Entity Framework Core, inheriting most of itself from Trellis's repository base. And the API's composition root is where they finally meet. Register the ACL implementation for the application interface, and the wiring is done. The domain and application depend on an abstraction they own. The database depends on them. That's the inversion, and it's why you can swap the database or test the whole domain without touching a line of business logic. 3 payoffs. 1. You can swap infrastructure freely, moving from SQLite to Postgres or Entity Framework to Dapper, touches only the ACL. The domain and application don't even notice. 2. You can test the heart of your system with no database and no HTTP. Just construct your objects and assert on them, because there's no infrastructure to spin up. And 3. The one that's pure Trellis. The compiler enforces the boundary. The domain project doesn't reference ASP.NET or Entity Framework at runtime. So a teammate, or an AI, physically cannot call the database from inside your domain model. The architecture isn't a diagram on a wiki that slowly rots. It's the project graph, checked on every single build. So that's the shape of a Trellis service. A domain at the center that knows only your business, application use cases around it, the ACL adapting the database, and a thin API at the edge. Dependencies point inward, the compiler keeps them honest, and your business logic stays free of infrastructure. Next time, we go inside the application layer and write our first use case, commands, queries, and the mediator that runs them without the ceremony. Subscribe, and I'll see you there.